Hey everyone, so something got me angry today, and so I want to do this video to educate everybody about a subject that's coming up quite a lot recently, at least in the UK, and is unnecessarily controversial. Now, this subject is triggered by the fact that the Daily Mail published an article this morning about the charity Mermaids and about generally about the subject of transgender children and how trans children are treated in the UK. Now, a lot of the stuff in this story is essentially just standard Daily Mail bluster about whether they're supporting trans children in the right way, and essentially claiming that they're advising mums to say that their kids are trans when they're not, and it's just ludicrous. But anyway, so this subject of trans children is coming up quite a lot in the media recently, and it's really disappointing to see the way it's treated. So I wanted to dispel a few myths. So firstly, why is this important? Why is it important that we help trans kids when they're young? And of course, for all trans people, not being able to access transition, not being able to access help is traumatic, it's distressing. If you experience dysphoria, then your body is not how you want it to be. So we know that there's a really serious impact on mental health and on physical health if we don't treat people. And of course, seeing this terrible coverage doesn't really help people a great deal either. But yeah, let's have a look at a few facts then about trans people and why this matters for trans kids. So firstly, gender identity. Now we know that gender identity forms at a very young age, sort of 3 or 4 years old. That's proven. There's loads of research that says that that's the case. Now for a typical cisgender or non-trans child, that's fine, that doesn't matter, that matches up with how they are. But if they're trans, this can cause great distress because they're aware of their gender identity, but they're also aware of how the world's treating them and how they look and move through the world, and it's upsetting for people. We know that if this is untreated, as I said before, it causes mental health issues. There's research to say that as many as half of trans people think about taking their lives. Yeah, that's awful. If something we can do to stop that, we must do it. So let's assume that your child or a child is saying that they're trans, or they're probably not saying that they're trans as such, but is experiencing this, and you go to the doctors. What are they going to do to help? And this is where a lot of the scare stories come in. You see so often that the likes of the Daily Mail saying, oh, they're giving surgery to 3-year-olds and they're giving hormones to 4-year-olds. It doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. For very young children, all that happens is they'll have a lot of talking therapy with the appropriate therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, psychotherapists that specialise in children and adolescents, social workers and family therapists. They'll get talking therapy, and if necessary, and if they have a persistent gender identity, then there might be a change of name or gender expression presentation, that kind of thing. Nothing more than that. All completely reversible if they change their mind, although we know they rarely do. So as they get a bit older and we get into the adolescent age, this is the point at which, if their gender identity has continued to be persistent, the medical professionals might start to think about puberty blockers. Now again, puberty blockers have been used for a very long time. All they do is delay the onset of puberty. We use these in cisgender children all the time if there's early onset puberty, or what's called precocious puberty. It's not hugely common, but we use it for that because, of course, for a very young girl, the early arrival of a period could be distressing. So these are tested drugs. We know how they work. Again, if the child's gender identity changes, they can come off them. They'll go through a puberty for their gender assigned at birth. Everybody's happy. The big thing that you often hear, I've said so many times, is this disingenuous claim about surgery or hormones for 12-year-olds or whatever. It just doesn't happen. There's no surgery that happens in the UK for under 18s. For older teens, sometimes, again, if there's been this consistent gender identity, they can access hormones, but it's very, very difficult to get that. It doesn't happen very often at all. It's actually harder than it should be. It would be a lot better if people were able to access that treatment. And finally, this other thing that we're seeing a lot of at the moment, and particularly today, is this ridiculous idea that parenting makes children trans, and that and it's usually saying, people will say mothers, that mothers desperately wanted a girl, so they're going to make their male assigned child into a girl. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. It doesn't happen. There was an article in the Lancet medical journal recently just saying that to date there's no research that's established a clear correlation between parenting and gender incongruence. So it's a nonsense. It's usually, I think, rooted in misogyny, saying that, you know, and exposing your male child to too much female influence will make them girly. It's just it's an old, ridiculous misogynist, and actually, you know, also rooted in homophobia as well. So I'll put some links to some of the references that I've made in here so that you can see that this is really true. But what I think is really important is that we all go out there and challenge this kind of nonsense when it comes out, because so much of the public opinion is very, very sketchy about transgender children, and so much of this is because people just don't understand it. They don't know the facts. They read in the newspaper that scary trans people want to do surgery on their 4-year-old, and of course they're anti it, because that's ridiculous. Everyone would be anti that, but that's not what's happening. It's not going to happen. So let's stop being ridiculous about it, but let's go and challenge this awful rhetoric that's out there. Thank you, and I'll speak to you later.